In the partnership of Lennon and McCartney, the myth has always been that they were equal forces, working side by side in perfect harmony. The truth, however, was far more complicated. By the mid-60s, their relationship was already strained by competition, personal differences, and the natural drift of two artists growing apart. Yet, despite all of the friction, Paul McCartney never denied John Lennon's brilliance. He may have criticized Lennon in later years, but there was one Beatles song from John that Paul singled out as his personal favorite. That choice reveals more about their bond than any interview or studio anecdote ever could. The song was "Strawberry Fields Forever." Written during Lennon's most introspective and experimental phase, it captured the surreal, fractured world inside his mind. For Paul, this song was more than just another Beatles track. It was John at his most daring. He admired the honesty in the lyrics, the strange, dreamlike structure, and the way it pushed beyond the traditional pop framework they had built their careers on. Paul could recognize in that moment that Lennon had created something completely unique, something that transformed what the Beatles were capable of.
What makes this choice significant is Paul's usual perspective. He often leaned toward melody, clarity, and precision. His own songs were tightly constructed, polished, and designed for emotional immediacy. Lennon's "Strawberry Fields Forever" was the opposite. It was fragmented, uncertain, and disorienting. For McCartney to name it as his favorite showed that even he, the master craftsman of melody, could be moved by Lennon's willingness to tear apart the rules. The recording of the song was one of the most difficult and chaotic sessions in Beatles history. Lennon couldn't settle on a version. He first recorded it stripped down, then expanded it with layers of sound. The production dragged on, draining the band's patience, but the end result was revolutionary. Paul himself contributed ideas during the process, including instrumental touches that helped bring Lennon's vision to life. Despite the clashes and frustrations, Paul saw the genius in John's persistence. The song became a landmark moment for the Beatles, not just musically, but as a statement of how far they could push their art. For McCartney, who was always conscious of competition, admitting that Lennon's song was his favorite carried weight. Their rivalry was intense and often bitter, yet Paul didn't let his pride stand in the way of acknowledging greatness. This was not an empty compliment. It was a rare, genuine concession. In his eyes, Lennon had created something that not even Paul himself could rival. The deeper story is that "Strawberry Fields Forever" symbolized the fragile balance between them. Lennon could drift into chaos and abstraction, while McCartney grounded the Beatles with structure and accessibility. But here, Paul was the one in awe, recognizing that Lennon's chaos had led to something transcendent. It was the clearest proof that their partnership worked because of contrast, not similarity. When Paul called it his favorite Lennon song, it wasn't just admiration. It was respect. Respect for the risk, the vision, and the emotional truth that Lennon laid bare. Even with all the years of arguments and bitterness that followed, Paul never withdrew that statement. Because some songs go beyond rivalry. Some songs, even in the middle of a fractured friendship, demand acknowledgement. "Strawberry Fields Forever" was John Lennon at his most vulnerable, and Paul McCartney knew it. He understood that behind the strange production and cryptic tone, there was honesty. And honesty was something Paul valued, even if he and John expressed it in completely different ways. That, perhaps, is why this song was his favorite. Not because it was flawless, but because it was real. For fans, it's easy to reduce the Beatles story to Lennon versus McCartney, two egos constantly in battle. But when Paul named "Strawberry Fields Forever" as his favorite John Lennon song, it revealed a truth often overlooked. no matter the rivalry, the jealousy, or the disagreements, there was still admiration. Buried beneath the conflict was a bond built on recognition of each other's genius. That bond may have fractured over time, but moments like this remind us it was never fully broken.